Welcome to another episode of the Jobology podcast. Today, my guest is a friend of mine that I met in elementary school. He is a mindfulness coach and leader. He's going to tell us all about what that means. He's going to give us some drills we can use in our everyday life. And he's going to tell us at what age we can start practicing our mindfulness. So, without further ado, Patrick. Thank you for being with me today, Patrick.
Thank you for having me. That's you're right. We haven't connected in I don't know how many years, 20 some years.
I think since like 8th grade, probably.
Yeah.
Back when we were co-MVPs
Yes.
of our basketball team.
Basketball.
Yep. I think we were co-MVPs because you were the real MVP and my dad was the coach. And so he was like, "Oh, Brandon's co-MVP too." Thanks, Dad. But the first question we kind of like to get started with so that we can kind of create a baseline is when you're at a party or meeting people or something like that, how do you, when somebody says, "Patrick, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that versus what is your like actual title on your business card?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I guess depends what kind of party, right? And what kind of impression I want to leave for this person. But something along the lines of I teach mindfulness at a big technology company,
Okay.
something like that. And then the official sort of title is senior program executive.
Okay.
And then I say the program or the project that I lead enterprise wide is the mindfulness one at our company.
Okay. And then could you give us a quick, maybe your definition of what mindfulness is, just so we as listeners are all kind of aware?
Yeah, it's tough to find like one common definition, as you're saying, and there's a lot of different connotations or stereotypes or labels that come up. But in its simplest definition, it's this human capacity that we have to bring our attention to the present moment in a very open, curious, friendly kind of way.
Okay.
Just attention and how you pay attention, basically.
Pay attention to yourself or pay attention to like the outside world or a combination?
A combination. So, what does this moment right now have? Well, lots of things that we can see, that we can feel, that we can hear. So, any of our senses, plus we have thoughts. Then there's emotions, sensations in the body, and behaviors or kind of impulses fall into that as well. So there's a lot going on.
Gotcha. So like trying to connect kind of everything into one, I don't know, being or one.
Yeah. Just kind of that's that difference between like doing and being. Right? There's a lot that we're doing. Our to-do lists are getting bigger and bigger. We're running around from one thing to another, but at the end of the day, you're a human being, not a human doing.
There, that's it. That's it. There we go. That I just got a social clip right there. So when you, I guess, why mindfulness or why ever even get into the field or into the I don't know what the right term would be, but I guess yeah, into the field of mindfulness.
It was actually at I think, as we get older, we reflect and we try to connect the dots. Like when did all this thing start? Um, Looking back at me as like a kid, I was all over the place. Like we were very active. I remember our breaks and just running around at school and lunch fights and
Oh yeah.
and I remember like my parents would always be telling me to like focus and concentrate. My mom would give me like some yarn and I just make a spider web out of it in my room. And then often we had like I had detention at school and the teachers and all that. And there was a time, I think around the age of 9 or 10, where we had like a martial arts school come to St. Didicus.
Okay. That's the grade school that we went to, just St. Didicus in San Diego. But yeah, I think I do remember that we had like a chess club come one time. We had a lot of different things, but I do remember the martial arts.
And I signed up for that. And that was kind of my first exposure to kind of starting to manage or get a hold of attention. And we did a lot of like meditation, kind of breath works to focus and perform better, etc.
Huh.
And I continued going there, even after I left our grade school, and then into middle school and high school and even into college. I continued doing the martial arts.
Mhm.
Yoga came around. I minored in world religions. My major was international relations,
Okay.
and I started. I was really fascinated with why we're here and what
Yeah.
connects us, and obviously you fall down the road of philosophy and world religions and things like that. Um, and then in my master's degree, I studied political science, and my landlord, after I finished my master's degree, trying to connect the dots, she was a mindfulness teacher,
Okay.
and she took me through like the first exercise.
Sounds like a pretty awesome landlord. I mean, I've never had a
Yeah.
landlord like that. All my landlords are like, "Where's the rent? They have mindfulness, schmindfulness, pay me."
Yeah. And that was about, I guess, 8 or so years ago. And then I kind of got hooked because it was a really secular practice. It was really research based, which I like. There was no like hocus pocus, fluffy pink unicorns, you have to worship something sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was at a time where I was like really stressed and a lot going on in the work that I was at. So I found a lot of comfort in it, and I just dove in, and I started doing it at IBM. I was working at IBM, and I became IBM's first full time role dedicated to mindfulness. And
Nice.
IBM had a spin-off company last year, and they said, Patrick, do you want to go there and do mindfulness as well?
So the I guess the major benefit to having someone like you in the company is keeping like the rest of the employees at a good level. So it's like well, I mean, sacrifice isn't the right word, but we'll bring in Patrick at the expense or at the trade-off of, well, now everyone's in a better mood. Everyone's kind of knows what they're doing. Idea?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
On paper, that's the idea. Uh, it's tough when we have 90,000 employees.
Oh,
So
jeez.
I can't be everywhere.
Oh, jeez.
So it is about growing a team and
Mhm.
building programs, and you have like self-paced stuff, and then you're running courses. But it's also about like these little things, just taking like a little break before every meeting, just coming back to that, as we talked about being that human being.
Mhm.
Just from the moment we wake up, Brandon, it's just we're on our phones, we're
Oh, yeah.
on the treadmill of the mind, racing from one thing to another, and it's exhausting.
You're speaking my language.
So it's just about getting off that treadmill for a bit, and we could approach it from like a stress management perspective. We could approach it from a performance perspective, or just connecting as humans. But yeah, I'm there to kind of do what you said.
Okay. How do you get that job? So is it something where you went on Craigslist and you were like, "Hey, look at that. They need a mindfulness coach," or is it you knew somebody that then said, "Hey, I think you'd be good for this," or do you sell yourself to IBM and go, "Hey, look, this is what I can offer. This is what I bring. This is the benefits." How does that transpire?
I think nowadays there might be some stuff that you find on Craigslist or like job portals. I think more and more they're looking for mental well-being, and all that's high. Mental performance is high on, and whether you look in the business world or sports or prison systems, there's mindfulness being taught.
Right.
But I guess my story was a lot of networking and just finding what you're passionate about, and what you're good at. Um, and then just kind of the dots connect.
Finding a company that fits that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And so we didn't really have that kind of role we didn't have that role at IBM, and also here. And I work with other big names like Microsoft and Amazon and Ford and L'Oreal, and
Yeah, like the biggest names.
like the
Like,
biggest names.
yeah, I
Yeah.
work with like some big names, like the biggest ones. But anyways,
They also don't have kind of these roles. So, or some do, but it's about really, kind of making the pitch, or finding what you're good at, meeting the right people, getting people to believe with you, showing the metrics, and a lot of kind of different factors. But it was, thanks to a lot of people supporting me as well.
so were you working for IBM? before you became like their mindfulness coach, or did you enter the company as the mindfulness coach?
I came in IT security.
Oh,
I was working in Deloitte before that as a risk consultant for the European institutions team, like European Commission and things like that. And there I started kind of doing these mindfulness sessions after hours or before work and like yoga sessions. And then at IBM, I came in, yeah, for IT security stuff. And then I, got into like a communication role. I was an agile coach for a while, but I was constantly supporting this kind of grassroots community that we had at IBM. It was around like 1,500 people at the time. And by the time I left IBM 5 years later, we grew that community to over 20,000.
oh wow.
So something, yeah, it wasn't something I was hired for, something that came up within the company.
That's really interesting. So one of the things that we like to talk about on Jobology is different ways you can find jobs, different ways you can get things, and that is something that's really important. I think is to know that hey, maybe you go to a company and you find something within that company once you're already there. It might not be something that you necessarily go for directly. Um, this might be tough to answer. So let's say so right now you're working for a different company, correct? Not IBM anymore. Kyndryl.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it they're an IT company as well?
Yep. IT services. Yeah.
Awesome. What does an average day look like if you're when you're working for Kyndryl? Now, a couple things that I want to hash out here is Patrick is not located in the United States. Where are you at currently?
I'm in Poland.
Okay, so out of Poland. So this again, it might be a little different if you're trying to mirror it to the United States. The other thing we like to say is average day can be tough because a lot of times there is no average day for a certain job. But if you had to kind of give us an idea of what an average day looks like, what time do you start? What time do you end? Are you mostly dealing with paperwork? Are you mostly client interaction? What transpires over an average day?
I'm super grateful because I really get to set my own pace and schedule.
Nice.
So if I wanted to start at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m., I can. If I want to work on the weekends or I want to travel or things like that. And I'm at a place now where I don't even kind of need those approvals unless there's finances and things involved, right?
Hmm.
But if I had to like average, probably around between 9 and 10, like I'll start. And I usually start with like a live virtual 15-minute mindfulness practice. So I usually start the day and kind of end the day with that. And people from around the world dial in.
Is it only for employees of Kyndryl, or is it like for example, could I just be like, oh, I want to see what Patrick's doing today and like log in?
You could. I do have maybe about 15 people that join from outside the company, but it's more like, a friend of mine or somebody I used to work with that I just give the invite to. We are planning to start doing more things externally. I just posted on LinkedIn that we're offering 2 courses open to the public for free. So if anyone's interested in enrolling in those starting in August.
We'll put the links in the description. So Patrick, click on that.
So yeah, usually the start of the workday, end of the workday has those practices. In between the day, I'll have time where I like check emails. I really like to, if you look at my calendar, it's kind of like a Tetris. It's like blocks for this podcast, for lunch, for taking this break, for doing that. And usually a few weeks in advance, it's pretty blocked. Um, Courses, yeah, usually leading like a intro course or a longer course sometime during the day. Different kind of networking things, lobbying sort of things, relation building with different people around the company.
Is this all remote right now, or are you going into a office?
It's on average it's remote, but I try to make it to the office like once or twice per week. And I do some travel. So I was like in the UK 2 weeks ago. I was in Spain.
You gonna be in LA anytime soon?
I They're actually thinking about, or they're planning on relocating me back to the States.
Would you like that or not like that?
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to. I came back to Europe for a few years to kind of explore and come back to the roots, but I'd like to go back.
Nice. Do you know what places they would be relocating you to?
They kind of gave me, where would you like to go sort of question, and I told them California. They said good, but they kind of want me on East Coast time zone
Mm-hmm.
because we have a lot of employees in Asia.
Gotcha.
So probably more East Coast, but we'll see. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of travel, and then just I really like to co-create. I really like to build stuff with people, whether that's a new kind of online tool that we're building or an online course, or what's the strategy look like for adapting this to the culture, or how are we going to run this thing around a leadership workshop, or things like that.
Gotcha.
And then there's a little bit of like the admin stuff dealing with budgeting and finances and new roles and things like that.
Yeah, the logistics side of things as opposed to
Yeah.
the fun side of things. Uh, is there so typically we're starting at like 9, 9, 10, something like that, and then is there a typical end time that you like to try and wrap up by?
Around 6ish, I would say. Maybe sometimes later. The Because I'm based in Europe, I could kind of meet both time zones.
Right.
But sometimes, especially for California folk or people in Australia, New Zealand, I do need to kind of wake up earlier or go to sleep a bit later.
Yeah. So there's not necessarily a like here's the time frame that I'm working because I'm working with people all over the world. So it could be this time frame, it could be that time frame.
Yeah, but I do kind of set boundaries because you can burn out, in this space. I know the impact I'm having. We're measuring it. We're doing research, and I find a lot of joy in helping people around the world. But I also need to say, hey, I can't do it anymore. I need time for myself. I need to take my weekends off and things like that.
It's hard to help others if you're not helping yourself.
Oxygen mask principle. Yeah,
Is that what that is?
yeah, yeah. Put it on yourself first before others.
I like that. Okay, oxygen mask principle. Um, is there how, before I ask this question, how many mindfulness coaches or leaders are there in the industry? Do you have a number or like an idea, or are you like, I'm the guy, I'm the one, the only, it's me?
No, there's a lot of people, but I would. That's a great question. It's probably more around like the thousands or tens of thousands,
Wow.
maybe a few dozen like real thought leaders or things like that. And it kind of depends where you go to kind of what field. The education space will have their folk, the sports world will have kind of their. Yeah,
So it's like you're this is what I do, but my focus is whatever is children,
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
employees, is okay. For a mindfulness coach, leader, etc. Um, is there a pay range? And if you don't want to discuss, we don't have to. I always like to throw that out there too. If you're like, hey, don't want to discuss it, we can move on. But is there like a range that we could have an idea of like, and it's also gonna this is also a little different because it's I'm assuming in euros as opposed to in USD. So you don't I don't want you don't have to do the conversion, but if is there like a range that we would know?
I think you'll get like the full range because it goes back to what we were just talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is your niche? Where are you focusing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody providing coaching or working for like a preschool. The school system is going to give you, right, how much do teachers or principals.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're working for one of the MBA teams, or you're working for corporate 500 companies, right? So we have, I think, the full spectrum.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then you have the handful of mindfulness teachers that are probably in the making millions because of the apps they put together and research they're doing and things like that.
So like the CEOs of mindfulness,
CEOs of mindful. Yeah.
is there any perks, benefits that we might not see? I mean, part from what I can tell, just from what we were talking about, one of the major perks it seems to be is a like you can kind of manipulate your schedule as you see, and B, it's like if I'm going to teach people mindfulness, then I need to take my time for myself and be mindful. So you have that perk of like, I want to work on me so that I can work on other people.
Yeah, yeah.
But is there something else we don't see or I don't know, notice maybe?
Other perks.
Perks, benefits is like, I mean, something I could maybe see is like you get invited to a huge conference or something really cool or like a cool event because they want you to teach this group, or lead a seminar or lead a session or whatever it would be.
I think because of I guess particularly just speaking about my own experience, the perks that I have is I get to meet a lot of people from different companies. And I also get to meet a lot of people from like other places and other companies because now the business world and the IT world is so integrated into everything. I was working with underprivileged schools for around the world for almost 2 years, and I got an opportunity to travel and bring mindfulness to really struggling areas of the world where some of the kids didn't have laptops or access to computers or things like that, or you know gunshots in the neighborhood on a daily basis, sort of thing. Uh,
That's got to be hard to be mindful when that stuff's going on. It's like, I need you to be present. It's like presently, a lot of stuff's happening. All right.
yeah, 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 exactly. But I mean, you are very very present when there's gunshots going off, and you're just it's into survival mode and things like that. Um, yeah, conferences. It yeah, kind of. I could answer that question depending on what field you're working in, et cetera. If you're strictly kind of a mindfulness coach doing your own thing, or you're part of a bigger organization or a company or with an app. But I think it's just the amount of people that I'm connected with. At IBM we had 350,000 employees, so I got to work with a lot of people. When I connect with Amazon, that has 1 million people working for them, or Accenture that has 500,000. So you're working with really big numbers, and you meet the fullness of that, I guess.
Gotcha. We're gonna kind of move now to career trajectory. This might not apply. This might be something where you're like, nope, this is what I like to do. This is what I want to do. But to start, is there like a job hierarchy? So do you have a supervisor? Do you have people under you? How does this, what's your position within where you're at?
Um, so I could answer this twofold. I could talk like specifically within the company, and then also like where I'd like to kind of be. Um,
Both?
Both.
Yeah, works for me. Either
I
one.
I do have a manager, like a local manager that
Okay.
you're assigned to, and my manager is the CEO of the office, or the Poland, like
Okay.
Kindrel in Poland.
Oh, okay. So you go direct to
Yeah,
the, okay. Gotcha.
direct to the boss here. And then so we have kind of these local managers,
Hmm.
and then you have your functional manager, which is your kind of, what is your function at the company, what is your business role.
Okay.
And there I have kind of, I don't really have a boss. I
Gotcha.
either joke it's the CEO of the big company, or kind of the C suite. um, my the funding for me is coming from two parts of the business.
Okay.
One is the culture transformation, and the second part is the delivery organization. So we have a lot of like cost centers around the world and delivery centers around the world, and the execs from there are also sponsoring my time.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then we have like levels, the bottom of the food chain, and then you have several levels before it's like the big boss up here, and I'm sort of kind of, I guess, closer to the top. But we're, kind of the hierarchy's changing, as you probably know. It's becoming more kind of like a matrix and organization, and it's really more about who's your network than the structures of the processes.
More out like a kind of web as opposed to a ladder.
Right, right, right. And I don't have like a formal team, but I have a bunch of volunteers that are working for me. And I did get the green light to start hiring for my team.
Nice.
I know there's people that are interested from the outside. I'm not advertising that we're hiring because I want to hire in the company,
Okay.
but probably I'll have either one or three people that will be reporting to me in the near future.
Are you excited about that? More like, oh, that's more work for me. That's more, now I got to teach these people. How does that, what are your thoughts on that?
I like it. Yeah, I think I mean, what's that wise saying? You go alone fast, but if you want to go far, with more people. And I really like to upskill people. I really like to think, what if something happened to me? Well, what's going to happen to the program? So I really like to empower people, and I'll invite different people to different meetings so they get exposure, give away responsibilities. And even though I don't have like a formal team, the team that I have is just awesome, and I'm giving back to them by giving them free teacher trainings at the University of Oxford, or travel, or funding for this, or et cetera, et cetera.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's that one part.
If we are talking like a mindfulness kind of like ladder or structure, is there like a mentor that you have versus like people you're menteeing? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's mentoring. You have like a mentee that
Yeah,
you're
yes.
mentoring.
Gotcha. Okay.
I guess the structure is, and the analogy I heard, or a metaphor recently, was it's a little bit like you go to the beach,
Hmm.
and so you get exposed to mindfulness via an app, or you hear about, or you read an article, right? Or somebody's like, oh, there's this thing, mindfulness. So that's
You
like
listen to a
ending up at the
podcast.
beach. You listen to a podcast, uh, and you arrive at the beach, and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of nice, but I don't really know. Like, this is, and then so kind of that next step would be taking a course, an 8-week course, a 12-week course, or some kind of structured protocol or intervention, to really get kind of the what it's about. And now there's kind of different ways you can go that way, but we won't get into that. And then after that, you usually have teacher training. Teacher training lasts anywhere from a year to 2 years. You then need supervisors coming to your training, the curriculum. Then you become like a certified teacher. Then you can, become an apprentice and become a supervisor, and then become a teacher, and things like that. And that probably takes around 6 to 7 years to become like a
Wow. Wow.
teacher of
Okay.
teachers.
Gotcha. It's a process. It's not, you wake up tomorrow and go, I want to be a mindfulness teacher. I'm a mindfulness teacher. Is there actual like certifications or licensing or stuff that you have to get?
Yes. It's still not like as well developed as like a psychologist or a therapist or something like that, but the field is going that way. Yeah, certifications. There's formal boards, and you can actually get accredited to like an advanced level, etc. But it depends which institution you go with and things like that. I do a lot of work and advise, and I'm doing my most of my teacher training at the University of Oxford
Okay.
and their mindfulness center. But really, it's a lifelong process. I mean, you're constantly learning. The field's also growing. The neuroscience is developing. So the way that I taught 2 years ago is already different than I'm teaching now, because we've 90%, if not 100% of the planet has been traumatized to one degree or another. So we have
Very
to be
true.
really sensitive in the practices we do, the words we use, etc. Because I could say something and I could trigger something, and
Come out harsher than you meant.
yeah. And there's actually, I mean, if you, I would say 3 to 10% of the population has adverse effects. And the research shows this as well. To sports, right? People have injuries. When you take prescribed drugs, there's adverse effects to a small percentage. If you go see a therapist, there's adverse effects. So it's the same with mindfulness. There is a small percentage of the population that, hey, actually just focusing on my breath, or listening to sounds can actually make things worse. So we got to be mindful of that, and that usually happens with more structured, formalized training.
Gotcha. So it's like almost, is it better to be in the moment or is it better to distract from the moment for this particular moment? Is it better to like, hey, look over here, don't worry about this, because it's gonna freak you out?
It's about so usually the foundations is first you have to start working with attention.
Hmm.
Um, that's something a lot of us struggle with, just paying attention for, right?
Me?
And what's equally important is the attitudes. So, am I being open and curious and kind to my experience? Or I'm very, self-critical and judgmental and really harsh on myself.
Also me.
Right. So those are the basics. And then you kind of start using what I would say is like a wider perspective.
Okay.
So you have your conceptual mode, your thinking mode, which is really important. Like I can think about, the last time I saw the sunset, right? And I can imagine that, etc. But that's different than actually being there, witnessing the sunset, right? Or we have the concept of love, whereas actually being in the arms of someone you love.
Gotcha.
And the latter, so this kind of embodied direct experience, is something that only happens in the present moment. So we can think about our hands, making some food in the future. But right now, if you're to bring your attention to your hands, I'm sure you can feel them, right? You know where they're at. Maybe there's temperature you can notice, dryness,
Yeah, sweaty.
sweaty, right? Or whatever it is. And when you're in the present, then that thinking mode is less active.
Okay.
So it's, for example, a lot of us wake up in the middle of the night and we're thinking about something. It's usually not how beautiful the sunset was. It's
No.
I got that thing tomorrow, or
Yep.
whatever it is. So in those moments when the mind is overly active and the brain is not designed for happiness, it's designed for survival and warning you from danger and things like
Hmm.
that. So we know that the key maintaining factor for depression, anxiety, and all these other things is overthinking. So, how can
Interesting.
I support this overthinking? It's not by thinking more, it's not by distracting yourself to think about something else. That will help for the
That's
moment, right?
okay.
But it's not going to help in the long
Hmm.
term. So, thinking, I come back to the present. What's always present? All of my senses: sound, touch, taste, breathing, heartbeat, etc. And we do this all, subconsciously. If you're
Right.
feeling bad, you'll eat ice cream and that
Hmm.
feels really good, right?
Yeah, yeah, it
Or
does.
you'll listen to some great music, right? And that feels really good.
Yeah, it does.
um so yeah, that's what you kind of start learning then, is how can I support what my mind is doing trying to protect me in a kind way by using something that's present, the body. And then,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That you gotta, again, it's uh, to try it and do another analogy, but again, if I'm wrong, just let me know. It's kind of, to me it seems like like wrapping up an injury versus actually fixing it. It's like, yeah, you could put a wrap on it, you can put a band-aid on it, but like it's still going to be there, as opposed to like, oh, if you actually train it and fix it and rehab it, then you're good.
yeah, 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 yeah. Going into those roots, right? Because guess what, we all suffer, right? You might not suffer again breaking that ankle, but you're going to experience pain again in your life.
Even in mindfulness, coach.
Even a mindfulness coach, right?
Damn.
The I'm no more special. I'm afraid. My biggest fear is public speaking.
What? I've literally watched
I still
videos
get
of
some.
you doing public speaking, and you're like the most calm, collected, just going with the flow. Oh my
Yeah,
lord, that's your. Oh
yeah.
gosh. Okay.
So it's that if I just let my mind loose, then I would never get on that stage, or I would just be sweating. But I'm supported by, coming back to the present. And in the present, there is no thinking. It's just experiencing.
Gotcha. You don't
Right.
have the worry or whatever because I'm doing it. I can't worry
I'm doing
about
it.
it.
I'm
It's
doing
it's
it.
happening. Yeah.
And the ego drops, and there isn't this persona of Patrick, and people might laugh at him, and you made a
Mhm.
mistake in the past, because you need that thinking mind to do that. But if
Gotcha.
you're just in your flow, like you're saying, I mean, here's great.
Yeah, I, I that's very, very insightful. I like that. We're gonna move to. I have five mindfulness specific questions, mindfulness coach specific questions. So I call them job specific questions, but the whole podcast is job specific. But these would be, these questions would be more specific to your job as opposed to everyone's. My first one I have, it kind of just goes with what you said about being a little nervous public speaking, is how do you calm your nerves? Like, how, when you have to go give a presentation, like, is there a trick you have? Is it, like you kind of said, just being in the moment?
So the trick is kind called finding your anchor. We all know the purpose of an anchor, right? To keep the ship at bay and in deep water. You know, when stuff's really stressful, the anchor is not going to stop the ship, but it's going to slow things down. So you have to find, or I find something, or you have to find something that's very present for you, like the feet on the floor, or the hands, or breathing. So depending how intense the situation is for me, I know somebody just wrote me like an email with an escalation. I might just, feel my feet, look at, beautiful sky, and I'll come back. But I'm having an argument with somebody from my family, then I need to use like the whole body, right? Just feeling my feet, the breath, my hands. Yeah, finding what's most present and alive for you, and that's your anchor, and that's what supports me.
Okay, so find your anchor. I like that's a good quick way for people just to remember. Hey, find your anchor. We know what that means. Find what connects you back to the present. If you could have, and I might not be using the right term here, but if you could have a mindfulness session or mindfulness meeting with anyone in the world, who would you pick?
Mindfulness meeting with anybody. The first thoughts that came up was like some, big name. I thought
Mm-hmm.
about the Dalai Lama,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what would be really cool is just, and I had like a dream about this. I'd like to just lead a session to the biggest crowd ever. So
Okay,
whatever that is, right? If
sure.
it's a big concert or just like a
A
big event,
stadium full of
a
people.
stadium, yeah, or just like the biggest live session, I think that'd be cool. Just
Oh,
to
that would be cool.
take that, yeah,
They get everyone's attention for 15 minutes, and just that would be
yeah.
awesome.
Just 30 seconds. I'll be super grateful.
Even 30 seconds. All right. As we kind of discussed at the beginning, we both played on our eighth grade basketball team, co MVPs, and whatever. Um, while like the way I kind of thought this question is like, as we were playing sports, we had drills, obviously. You have layup drills, you have passing drills, whatever. Is there a drill that you, as a mindfulness coach, could give us to like practice our mindfulness or become better at mindfulness? But is there like a specific drill that you, or is that not?
Yeah, like a really simple thing to do is find one routine activity that you do every day. Brushing your teeth, taking a shower, taking out the trash, I don't know, washing the dishes, whatever it is, and just do that with your full attention.
Okay. So not, I get what you're saying. Not like just going through the motions. Not like, okay, yep, dishes done, and as you're doing the dishes, thinking of other things. What else do I have
Right,
to do?
right,
What's
right.
next? Focus on, okay, I have to wash the dishes. I have to. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that helps keep people more in the present.
Yeah, one, it helps you keep more in the present. Two, it trains your attention. A lot of us, when we're brushing our teeth, for example, we're on our phone or we're, right, as you're saying, planning, and we are what we practice. Guess what? You're practicing something all the time. So if you're good at doing lots of things at once, you're going to be good at, doing lots of things at once. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, we have a negativity bias or a negativity effect. And giving all things equal, we pay more attention to the negativity. There was a Harvard research that came out, and they said half the time we're not focused on the task at hand. And a majority of that time, like 80% of that time, we're focusing on the bad things, the things that can go wrong, etc.
That's very true.
So,
I'm never
yeah, right?
sitting here when my brain's going, it's not going to like, oh, guess what? This is going to be success. It's always like, what's the detriment? What's going to happen bad? How do
Yes,
I,
yes.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So trying to stay more present, more in the positive. I mean, that's what I like to do with the podcast. I mean, that's why I try and wear a small business shirt. That's why I try and give, people a platform is that idea.
Yeah. And you said a key word. So I mentioned kind of attention, but the second thing is these attitudes of just appreciating, you know, yes, there's a million things that can go wrong right now, but guess what? You're breathing right now. The internet's working, right? You have clothes. There isn't bombs going off over your house. Your heart's beating, right? It's these simple things, and if we can be really specific, like, what I really appreciate, you know, something that my sister said to me the other day, not just like general concepts of, oh, I have friends, I have a job,
I have a loving family.
yes, I have a living family, but really getting specific, because then we can rewire the brain. And you know appreciation only happens now. If you look around your room and you have a great background, I'm sure you have a lot of cool things in your room.
Yeah,
All those things you can appreciate right now.
yeah.
So practicing appreciation in the present, and also paying attention to one thing. And I don't know if you feel it, but when we appreciate, it's not just a head thing.
Mm-mm.
There's emotions involved. And if there's emotions involved, there's a biochemical reaction in the body. So we can actually sense appreciation. And that makes it more powerful.
Yeah. So when you were kind of talking about that, I was trying to like, okay, let me try and come up. Let me think of something like, let me feel appreciative. Let me think of something like that. And honestly, I felt tingly. Like when you
Yeah,
were
me
saying
too.
the biochemistry, and then it gets you that like chills or like, why do I have goosebumps right now? That's so
Yeah,
weird.
yeah,
But
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
interesting. So it does, that is a like actual reaction within our body that we can measure, we can look at.
Right, right. And what's interesting, and this is applicable for learning in general, is the more senses you use, the more brain you use, and the longer that connection is formed. So, if you want to learn something, use more senses. And in order to use more senses, you need to be present, and you need to, right, be mindful of what's going on, not just in the head, but also in the body, or the emotions, the senses, etc.
Right? The feel, the taste, the touch, the smell. Gotcha.
Right.
Two more job specific questions, which I know makes it six instead of the normal five, but I came up with another one this morning that I thought was really good. So we're going to keep rolling with it. The fifth one I have, though, is do you have a mentor that we should check out or that we should know?
I have like they're all kind of like internal within the company, or different names are coming up. A lot of the teachers at Oxford. Um, yeah, nobody like specific that I'd recommend just in general, but more for like specific things.
Kind of like that network as that
Yeah, yeah,
web as
that
opposed to
network.
the ladder. Like I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have a lot of people that I work with that I take from. It's not just one specific. And I definitely skipped a question, so we're going to go back. Is there a good starting age for people to start practicing mindfulness or learning about mindfulness?
As soon as the mother is pregnant, they could already start, and there's already some effect on the body of the fetus that's growing.
Wow, I was not expecting that. I was expecting you to say, well, like a toddler, it's really hard to kind of,
Yeah,
so maybe like once they're like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. I was not expecting in utero.
yeah, in utero. There's while I didn't work specifically with kids that young, I have worked with a lot of like 5, 6, 7 year olds, and in some preschools around mindfulness. But I've witnessed this firsthand with people in my family, or friends that have shared this with me, or other teachers. Just holding a baby against yourself and breathing in a nice, like a just a natural breathing in the present, can really calm the baby. And the children are like sponges, so how you are really resonates onto them. And then I think, what is it, around 4, 5, or 6, we start to develop like our self-awareness, in the sense that we could recognize ourselves in the mirror. And I think that's a really good age to start kind of reflecting on, what are you feeling right now, and naming those emotions. And as we're talking about, starting, oh, where's your attention going now? Oh, it's going to the future. Okay. And how does that feel? Well, it doesn't feel so good. Where doesn't it feel good? It doesn't feel good in the chest. Is there emotion? Yeah, I feel a little angry. Is there something else? Maybe some excitement. So as soon as I think that the child becomes self-aware, you can start using more of these attitudes and attention and things like that.
Makes sense. The final one I have for you that I came up with this morning is there a optimal diet for mindfulness? So I know like, I don't eat the best, I don't eat the healthiest, but is there like cuz kind of what we were talking about, biochemistry, everything kind of plays a
Yeah.
role. Is there like a diet, or is there something we should be consuming more that kind of would help our mindfulness or our brain?
What's interesting is one of the first thoughts that came to my mind was they've done a lot of research on people and smoking, mindfulness training and smoking, and they did the same with dieting.
Smoking tobacco or marijuana?
Tobacco, yeah, cigarettes. If you wanted to quit smoking and you started to really bring mindfulness to that cigarette, meaning you're really paying attention to the smell, the feel, the touch, the texture, then people get kind of grossed out and icky.
Once you start knowing what's really in there, what's really, yeah.
But people who really enjoy smoking tobacco or cigarettes, they actually continue to smoke or even smoke more because they really
That
kind of
smells
soak it
really
in.
good. The
Yeah,
taste
it
is
smells really
good.
good.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never noticed how cool the
Mhm.
smoke is,
Yeah. It's
well,
like, oh,
whatever it is.
adverse reaction. Not what we're trying to do.
So my suggestion would be is to really bring a sense of curiosity and unitasking to whatever it is that you're eating, because we're often eating and talking, watching on our phones, eating very fast. I'm doing something like, wow, the whole bag of chips is gone. So really bring a lot of this attention to eating and pay attention to how the body reacts. How do you feel, right? Are you feeling more energetic afterwards or more sluggish? Is there more tightness, etc.? And then you'll slowly start discovering for yourself. I mean, I don't want to come on here and say take this diet or only eat this, because we're so different, right? Each one of us is so different and we need different things. So it's really about discovering things on your own. Maybe one thing I'll suggest is a lot of what we eat is mixed with a lot of things. So just try to eat one thing at a time. After eating one or two bananas, how do you feel? Or, like one food type.
As opposed to a banana, cereal, toast, coffee, orange juice. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And mixing it all
Uh,
together. Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. And then I think with practice and with time, you will discover what your optimal kind of food is to be to bring, because we can digest a lot of crazy crazy things, right? So you got to think about it in kind of a simple mathematical form. If I'm digesting something right now and it's tough to digest for my body, then a lot of energy is going to digest that. So if a lot of energy is going to digest that, less is going to, being logical or compassionate or creative or fixing my immune system or working with cancers or whatever it is. So it's what's optimal for me to think and also feel and sense and be present. And that differs by person and different things.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't think about that when I came up. I was just like, oh, he's gonna be like spinach, eat greens. I don't know, something. But okay, that makes sense. That yeah, of course, each person's different. But going back to the mindfulness is if you're present, then you'll realize, oh, this makes me feel crappy. This makes me feel great. This makes me feel sluggish. This makes me feel energetic.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Another part that I'm trying to kind of start in this podcast, another kind of segment idea is this might not apply to your job specifically, but if I was, let's say, taking a seminar from you or taking a session from you or whatever it is there a way that I can be better to my mindfulness coach? So, we were kind of talking about positivity. How can I be, one of the things I'm trying to do is how can I be better too? So, like, how can I be better to my mailman? How can I be better to blah, blah, blah? But how can I, as a just average Joe person, be better to my mindfulness coach or my mindfulness leader if I'm in that situation?
Be honest, authentic, and share your experience.
Okay.
So what's one of the key things when you're working with a mindfulness teacher or coach or going through a program is it's a lot of experiential learning or practical learning, hands-on. Theory's nice and theory's there, but we can talk about, swimming all day and the benefits, but you have to actually jump in the water, right?
Yes.
And so we do a practice, right? This kind of practice, that kind of practice, etc. And then there's time to share, right? How was that for you? What did you notice? And I think when people share what happened to them, then not only does the teacher, they could better tailor, adjust, support them,
Right.
but if there's people involved, like you're teaching in a group, the group learns a lot from that as well. um, you know a lot of us are, thoughts come in and say, well, people are going to think I'm stupid, or I'm the only one with this problem, etc.
I don't want to be
No,
weird.
we all have weird thoughts, we all
Mhm.
have bad thoughts, we all feel pain, we all feel great. I mean, that's the shared human condition. So there isn't anything. And I think working with a mindfulness teacher, one of our key values or principles is to be non-judgmental.
Mhm.
So whether you say something awesome or horrible, you're going to get the same, love and compassion and understanding. So just be you. Yeah.
Non-judgmental. Um, so you, that makes sense because if I'm trying to get the most out of this, and if I want my teacher to be better in the future, then yeah, being honest, being open, hey, that didn't work for me. Hey, that did work for me. Oh, that made me feel scared. That made me feel whatever. It's gonna help you tailor to the future people. Okay, this doesn't. I asked 10 people about this. 10 people said this doesn't work. So maybe, but tailor. Interesting. Okay.
And what's really interesting, I don't know how much sense this is going to make, but so we really focus on the practice we just did. So say I just took you through like a 5-minute guided practice or exercise. And then afterwards you say, well, that was stupid. That made no sense. You're completely wrong. What I would say to that is, first of all, thank you for sharing your experience, right?
I would not
Uh,
say that. Say, get the hell out of my class. Bye. That's why you're the coach and I'm not.
and the second thing I would say is, isn't that interesting how that came up for you, right? You had those sort of thoughts. And how does that feel? Did you notice anything in your body change when you had those thoughts? So it doesn't matter the context, right, of your experience or what you're thinking about or what you're analyzing. What I'm focusing on is attention, thinking, feeling, sensing, and impulse. And we all share that. So there isn't like a wrong thing to say to a mindfulness teacher, if that makes
Right.
sense.
As long as you're truthful. I mean, I guess the
Yes.
wrong thing would be is if you're just blatantly lying and you're like, nope, that didn't work and it did, or if you're like, yeah, that works and it doesn't work. But if you're truthful, then even if you're again like this doesn't work for me, that's great.
Yeah.
Or this is stupid, that's great. It's all there's nothing, no wrong answers.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think that's about it for the job side of things that I have for you. But like we always like to do is we like to give our guests some time to either tell us, a little bit more about them, where they can find you, or if you have a cause that you would like to bring attention to, or kind of just something you want to leave people with. Here's your time.
I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. Um, so just check me out there. I think if you just search my name, you'll find different things I've done.
If you just
But
search your name. By the way,
yeah.
so something that you guys, the little behind the scene, little. I'm not gonna. If you want to share your last name, go ahead. I'm not gonna try it, but it is a Polish last name, and I remember. I don't know if you remember this, but in like first or second grade, third, somewhere around like in the very beginning of grade school, you have spelling bees, and so we have our little spelling test every Friday or whatever. The teacher for bonus one year decided we're gonna put a couple random last names on there and let people try and see if they can spell them. And Patrick's last name is the most insane thing I've ever seen, and I don't think anybody but him got it right.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to look you up, where would they find what would they search?
Yeah, just Patrick Kozakiewicz.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, however that
K
sounds.
O Z letters.
Yes, KOZ letters. There's a Z at the end, I think.
Some like I know there's vowels in there, but yeah, that's about it.
But yeah, just growing up with that last name, every time you call someone
Mhm.
to fix something, to set something up, what's your name? Patrick Kozak. Can you spell it? Yeah, 11 letters later.
Yeah, you got a pen, paper, a coffee. This is gonna take a minute. Um,
And then when it comes to like the shout out, or what do I recommend? Go out and do a random act of kindness.
I love that.
Don't don't try to, just find something, be kind, hold the door up, pick up some trash, donate somewhere. You all know how to be kind, so just go and do that. A little bit of kindness goes a long way.
I love that. That is exactly it. Just do something nice. Don't expect anything. Don't whatever. Just do it.
Yeah.
And just if everyone took the time to do a little something nice, man, this world would be a much better place.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time out of your day to do this for me. I really appreciate it. I think there's a lot of great information that people can take from this. All the links that Patrick said, we'll put his Instagram, we'll put everything in the description. So if you're more interested in mindfulness, check it out. I've checked out some of his speeches on YouTube, some of his presentations on YouTube. So they're out there too. So if you want to learn more, check all that out. And again, thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Jobology podcast. Thank you, Patrick, for being my guest today. Before I let you guys go, a couple quick reminders. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and follow on all social media platforms at Jobology Podcast. And like we say to end every episode, make good choices.